Amy looked at him, her eyes softening in spite of the pain inside her. She had never seen Jack look this vulnerable, this small under the weight of his choices. "I wasn't trying to betray you," Jack whispered. "I was trying to protect you. Maybe that was wrong, so maybe I should have let you decide for yourself. But I was scared. Scared that whatever Marion wrote would change how you saw her, or how you saw me." His voice fell silent, replaced by the quiet hum of the barn's old lights. Jack didn't wipe his eyes, but they shone with something raw and honest. He had carried this secret alone for far too long. Amy's fingers tightened around the envelope. The truth of Jack's fear settled heavy inside her, not anger this time, but understanding mixed with uncertainty. She didn't know what the letter contained, but she knew one thing. Jack hadn't hidden it out of selfishness. He had hidden it from a place of love, even if it hurt her now to realize it. Amy looked at him gently. "Jack, you should have trusted me." Jack nodded slowly, the words hitting him with the weight of a truth he had always known but never faced. "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry, more than you'll ever know." Between them, the air shifted, still filled with pain, but now touched with something else. A beginning, Amy sat perfectly still, the envelope lying across her palms like a fragile piece of the past. For a long moment, she didn't move, didn't breathe. Jack watched her quietly from the other side of the barn. His hands clasped together, his eyes filled with equal parts worry and hope. Amy swallowed hard, feeling her heartbeat echo through her whole body. She ran her thumb along the sealed edge of the envelope. This was it, the truth her mother had left behind. With slow, careful movements, Amy slid her finger under the flap. The old paper cracked softly, a tiny sound that somehow felt enormous. Inside was a single, folded letter, worn from time, but written with the same strong hand Amy remembered seeing on birthday cards and lunchbox notes from her childhood. She opened it gently, her hands trembling. The narrator in her mind seemed to fade as her mother's words came alive on the page. "My sweet Amy," the letter began. "If you are reading this, it means life has taken a turn I never wanted for you. I wish I could be there to say these things out loud, but sometimes the truth is easier to write than to speak." Amy's breath caught. Marion's voice filled her memory, warm, steady, full of love, and now those same feelings wrapped around the words in her hands. "I am proud of you, more than you will ever know. You have a gift, Amy. You see horses the way I always wished I could." Amy blinked, tears slipping down her cheeks. It felt like Marion was standing right behind her, speaking softly, guiding her just like she used to. "There's something I never told you," the letter continued. "Before you were born, I made mistakes. Choices I thought were right at the time, but they carried pain I never wanted you to carry too." Amy's fingers tightened on the paper. She read on, her eyes racing across lines filled with truth, regret, and love. "Jack has been my strength more times than I can count. Trust him. He has a heart bigger than any hurt. If someday you find this letter, I want you to know this. You were my light, Amy, my hope, my second chance." Her shoulders shook. She didn't realize she was crying until the ink began to blur. The final words were written softer, the handwriting dipping slightly, as if Marion had written them through emotion. "I love you, Amy. And no matter where life takes you, remember this. Your heart will always find its way back home." When Amy lowered the letter, her whole world felt both heavier and lighter. She stared at the page, stunned by the honesty, comfort, and sadness woven through every word. This wasn't just a letter from a mother. It was a final gift, a bridge from the past to the present. Something meant to guide her long after Marion could no longer hold her hand. Amy pressed the letter to her chest, closing her eyes as tears fell freely. For the first time in years, she felt her mother closer than memory, closer than pain. Behind her, Jack remained still, giving her space, but silently praying he had done the right thing at last. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again. The barn felt different now, as if the air itself had shifted after Amy finished reading the letter. She sat quietly on a small bale of hay, the paper resting gently against her knees. Her tears had dried, but the heaviness in her chest stayed, soft but deep. like a bruise on the inside. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, not out of sadness alone, but from the strange mix of comfort and confusion her mother's words had left behind. Jack waited a few feet away, leaning against the stall door. He didn't move, didn't speak. He gave Amy the silence she needed, even though the silence made his own heart ache. He watched her carefully, her slow breathing, her distant gaze. The way her fingers traced the edge of the letter again and again. It reminded him of the way Marion used to calm herself before saying something important. Amy finally lifted her head. Her eyes were still soft, still hurting, but something new shone in them, something searching. "There's more, isn't there?" she whispered, almost to herself. "Something she didn't write. Something she expected you to explain." Jack straightened a little, his brows pulling together. "Amy, your mom shared what she felt she could. She didn't tell me everything either, but she hinted at something," Amy said quietly. "Mistakes, choices, pain she didn't want me to carry." "What did she mean?" Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the need to understand a truth she had lived her whole life without knowing. Jack's expression shifted. Not guilt, not anger, but something heavy and tired. "Your mom went through things before Heartland became home," he said carefully. "Things she was still working through when she had you and Lou. She loved you both with everything she had, but she also feared her past might spill into your future." Amy lowered her gaze again, her heart tightening. She thought about the person her mother was: strong, bright, brave. She had never imagined Marion as someone carrying hidden pain. It felt strange, almost impossible, to picture her mother as human in the same fragile ways Amy felt now. The horses shifted in their stalls, their soft snorts filling the space like gentle reminders that life moved forward even when hearts felt stuck. Amy folded the letter slowly, holding it with both hands. She felt closer to her mother than she had in years, yet at the same time the words had opened a door she had never known existed. What was she afraid of? Amy asked again, though her voice was quieter this time, less demanding, more vulnerable. Jack sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know everything, but I do know this. Marion wanted you to grow up without her past weighing down your future. She wanted you to build your own life, not chase ghosts from hers." Amy nodded faintly, though her eyes stayed clouded with new questions. Questions about Marion, about her choices, about the pieces of a story Amy realized she'd never fully been told. She held the letter close, pressing it against her heart. "It feels like she left me a puzzle," she whispered. "One I'm only just starting to understand." Jack stepped closer, not too close, but enough to let her know she wasn't alone. "You don't have to figure it out today," he said softly, "or alone." But even as he spoke, Amy felt something stirring deep inside, the sense that this letter wasn't the end. Of her mother's truth, it was only the first step. Amy sat, quietly holding the folded letter against her chest, as if it were a heartbeat she didn't want to lose. The barn was calm again, but not the same calm as before. This calm felt fuller, heavier, like the space around her had learned a truth it couldn't forget. Jack stayed near her, not speaking, just standing close enough for support. He knew she needed time to let Marion's words settle, to sort the feelings pulling at her from all directions. After a long stretch of silence, Amy finally looked up at him. Her eyes were soft but tired, still carrying the sting of everything she'd learned. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly, "even if it took a long time." Jack nodded, relief and sadness mixing in his expression. "You deserved the truth," he answered, "and I should have trusted you sooner." Amy took a slow breath, trying to steady herself. She glanced down at the letter again, tracing the handwriting with gentle fingers. She could feel Marion's love in every word, but also the shadow of something that hadn't been explained, something left unsaid. And that silence nagged at her heart like a whisper she couldn't quite catch. As she stood, ready to tuck the letter safely into her jacket, her hand brushed the wooden box she had found earlier. For a moment she froze. The box had held the letter, but maybe that wasn't all it held. Something about the way it felt heavier than a single envelope should stirred. A new edge of curiosity inside her. Jack noticed her hesitation. "Amy, what's wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she carefully lifted the box again, shaking it lightly. A faint thud echoed from inside. Amy's eyes widened. There was something else, something she hadn't seen. Jack stepped forward, a flicker of worry crossing his face. "Amy!" Wait, but she was already opening the box, pushing aside the loose cloth she had overlooked the first time. And there, hidden beneath it, lay a second envelope. This one, darker, older, and unmarked. No name, no date, no hint of what waited inside. Amy stared at it, her breath thinning. "Jack, did you know about this?" Jack's face changed, not with guilt this time, but with pure confusion. "I've never seen that one," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. A single letter, hidden for years, sealed with a truth Jack hoped Amy would never uncover. But today, that secret finally rises to the surface. And when Amy's fingers touched the faded envelope, everything she thought she knew about her mother and about Jack Began's to the barn was quiet that afternoon. The kind of stillness that felt almost heavy. Dust floated in the soft strips of sunlight coming through the old wooden boards. Amy had come in only to find an old halter, nothing more. But as she moved things around, her hand brushed against a small wooden box tucked deep beneath a stack of worn saddle blankets. It didn't look like something that belonged to anyone else. It looked personal. It looked hidden. She paused, her breath catching for a moment as she slid the box toward her. The wood felt cold, untouched for years. She lifted the lid slowly, expecting maybe old tools or spare nails. Instead, her heart thudded when she saw a single envelope resting inside, untouched, sealed tight. The paper was yellowed at the edges, as if time itself had been holding it hostage. And then she saw the handwriting. Jack's. Her name written carefully across the front. "To Amy, when you're ready to know the truth." The words hit her like a sudden drop, pulling her stomach down. Truth. What truth? And why did Jack decide when she was ready? Her fingers trembled as she turned the envelope over in her hands. She didn't open it. Something about it felt too big, too heavy to face alone in the quiet barn. Her mind raced. She tried to remember if Jack ever acted strange around her mother's belongings. If he ever stopped her from looking through old things? Had he been carrying something this important all these years? Amy swallowed hard, feeling the sting of confusion rising behind her eyes. It wasn't anger, at least not yet. It was the shock of finding something that had been meant for her long before she was old enough to understand it. She stood there frozen, her boots planted in the dirt as if moving might break the moment. The wind outside pushed gently against the barn door, making it creak, a soft reminder that time hadn't stopped just because she had. The envelope felt heavier than paper should, as if whatever truth waited inside had been waiting patiently. For this very day, Amy pressed the envelope against her chest for a moment, closing her eyes. She wasn't sure whether she was ready for the truth, but she knew she couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. Change. Amy sat on the edge of the old couch in the loft, the envelope still resting in her hands like something fragile and alive. She had brought it inside without even realizing her feet were moving. Now, with the barn quiet behind her and the soft ticking of the old wall clock filling the room, the weight of the letter pressed harder on her thoughts. She stared at her name written in Jack's familiar handwriting. It felt strange, almost like the past was reaching out to her. Her fingers traced the curve of each letter. She remembered Jack's steady hands, his calm voice, the way he always knew what to say when things felt impossible. But now she wondered, how could he hide this from her? Why would he keep something from her that her mother had written? The more she tried to push the questions away, the louder they echoed. Amy set the envelope beside her for a moment, rubbing her palms against her jeans as if trying to warm them. Her mind drifted back to Marion, her smile, her voice, the soft way she used to braid Amy's hair. Memories came like slow waves, gentle but heavy. What could her mother have written on that last night? A confession, a warning, a goodbye she never had the chance to speak? The thought made Amy's breath tremble. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor, as though the answers might appear in the grain of the wood. Her heart felt tight, like it was trying to protect itself from something she hadn't even read yet. A part of her wanted to tear the envelope open right then. Another part begged her to wait, to breathe, to steady herself, to be ready. But how could anyone ever be ready for something like this? A gust of wind tapped against the loft window. The sound pulled her eyes upward, and for a moment the light caught the dust in the air, making it look like tiny stars drifting around her. It reminded her of nights she spent with Marion counting real stars, whispering wishes they never expected to come true. That memory softened her fear just enough to breathe again. Amy reached for the envelope once more, but her hand hovered above it. She felt the storm inside her: fear, curiosity, hurt, love, colliding all at once. This wasn't just a letter. It was a bridge between a past she didn't understand and a truth she never asked for. And opening it would mean stepping across that bridge with no way to turn back. She closed her eyes, inhaled slowly, and whispered to herself, "Mom, what did you want me to know?" But the silence that followed felt deeper than before, as though the whole house was holding its breath with her. Amy knew one thing: whatever waited inside, it would change something in her heart. Maybe something small. Maybe everything. The barn door slid open with a slow groan, the kind that always announced Jack's arrival before he ever stepped inside. Amy didn't look up. She sat near the far stall, her back straight but her shoulders tight, as if she were holding her breath. The envelope was still in her hands, corners slightly bent now from how hard she'd been gripping it. Jack's boots crunched softly on the hay-covered floor. He stopped a few steps behind her, not too close, but close enough to sense the tension filling the space between them. Jack had known Amy long enough to read her without words. The way she didn't turn toward him, the way her fingers trembled just slightly. Something wasn't right, Amy. His voice was calm, but even he could hear the worry tucked inside it. She didn't answer. Instead, she lifted the envelope into the light, letting him see it clearly. Jack's breath caught for a single, sharp second. He knew that envelope. He knew it better than he wished he did. The sight of it in Amy's hands felt like a clock he'd been fighting against had finally reached its final tick. Jack stepped closer, slowly, as though the letter might break if he moved too fast. Where did you find that?" Amy finally turned her head. Her eyes were filled with confusion, hurt, and something he feared most: doubt. It was hidden, tucked away in a box under old blankets. Her voice shook in a way that almost broke him. "You hid it, Jack. You hid this from me." The barn felt colder now, the silence stretching like a long shadow between them. Jack's jaw tightened, not with anger, but with a weight he'd carried for years. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words tangled. There was no simple way to explain a choice made from fear, love, and regret, all mixed together, Amy. He tried again, softer this time. "I didn't want you to find it like this." Her eyes fell back to the envelope. "Then when? When I turned 20? 30, never?" Her voice cracked slightly, and Jack felt it like a crack in his own chest. He lowered himself to sit on a hay bale across from her, his movements slow, deliberate. "I wasn't trying to keep it from you forever. I didn't know when the right time was. And every year that went by, it got harder to decide. Harder to believe there even was a right time." Amy watched him, her breath uneven. She wanted to understand him, but she also wanted to protect the part of her that felt betrayed. She looked at the letter again, the edges worn from years of waiting. "It's from my mom," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me she wrote this?" Jack pressed his palms together, leaning forward. His face carried the weight of old memories he rarely touched. "Because Marion wrote it on a night I try not to remember. And because I knew whatever was inside would change everything for you. I wasn't sure you were ready. I wasn't sure I was ready either." The barn steadied into silence once more, filled only with the soft rustle of horses shifting in their stalls. Amy didn't move. Jack didn't look away, and between them, the letter sat like a truth that could no longer stay hidden. Jack let out a long breath, the kind that sounded like it had been trapped inside him for years. He looked down at his hands, rough from work, but shaking now in a way Amy had never seen before. The barn felt too quiet, as if even the horses sensed something important was unfolding. Amy held the envelope in her lap, waiting, hurt, confused, but ready to hear whatever truth Jack had been carrying alone. It was the night before the accident, Jack finally said, his voice low and uneven. Marion came to me after everyone had gone to bed. She was restless, troubled. She said there were things she wished she had said to you, things she needed you to know if anything ever happened. He paused, the memory pulling at him like a heavy rope. Amy's chest tightened. She had been too young then to understand the weight adults carried. But now, hearing Jack speak, she felt the echoes of something deeper, something Marion had never shared. Jack continued, staring at the floor as if he could see that night replaying. She wrote the letter right here in the barn. She told me not to give it to you until you were old enough to understand it. And at the time, I agreed. You were just a kid, Amy. You deserved peace, not more questions. He swallowed hard. Amy could hear the regret in every word. But then, Jack said after she passed, everything changed. You were hurting. You and Lou. You both needed something solid to hold on to. I didn't want a letter full of Marion's fears or regrets to make things even harder. His voice cracked slightly and he cleared his throat, so I put it away. I told myself I would give it to you when the moment was right, but every time I looked at it,